Welcome to another episode of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me live this week, joining us live from the UK, EJ Boxing Live. I believe joining us as well as Chris Caban, Ben Umar, joining us live from Taiwan, Shawn Newton joining us live from California, Gail Falkenthal of Community Digital News. How you doing, ladies and gents?
Hello.
How you doing, man? The rest of them guys have cut out, so they might jump in later on. But I'm good here. Nice.
Right. Cool. For those who are new to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the Pound for Pound Boxing Report is a live YouTube show /blog/podcast that discusses all things boxing. The motto is, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When boxing is bad, we will talk about it. The bottom line is, if it concerns boxing, we will talk about it. If you want to find more information about the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, check out the Pound for Pound Boxing Report blog page, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com is the link. And repeat that, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. On the blog, you will find articles and videos written by not only by yours truly, but also articles written by KBC Live, Kayla Lewis on Twitter, as well as coming soon a special blog post about Mayweather Pacquiao from Gail Falkenthal herself. So look for that in the future. Also on the blog page, if you check out the page on the right, you'll find all links of where to find us on social media, on the interwebs, if you will, on Facebook, on Google+, on YouTube, on Twitter, Tumblr, Podomatic, Stitcher. We got a Pinterest board, the RSS feed. Please check us out on Stitcher Radio, StitcherRadio.com. Just do a search of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. That's POUND, the number 4, POUND Boxing Report. Check us out there. Leave a commentary, leave a review. Tell us what we're doing right with the show and how can we improve the show. Go our RSS feed. You can also subscribe to, as well as a link to where you can donate your account. DonateYourAccount.com/P4P Boxing Report. What happens is, any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page, your Twitter account, should you donate your Twitter account, automatically have the ability to read any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page. With those issues out the way, those homework matters out the way, let's get the show started. Doing a recap of what went down this past weekend, highlighted, of course, by the return of boxing, World Championship Boxing on network television here in the States. PBC on NBC, as they call it. That was the hashtag on Twitter. That went all throughout the evening. In Las Vegas, headlined, of course, by Keith Thurman defending his interim welterweight belt against Guerrero, 12-round decision. Since ladies first, I'll go to you on this one, Gail. Your impressions of Thurman's win. I personally thought it was a very exciting fight. It made the night. Your impressions on Thurman, Guerrero, and your overall impressions on PBC on NBC, the return of World Championship Boxing on network television.
Well, you know, the Thurman and Guerrero bout was a great opener for PBC, and it proves that you don't have to have necessarily the top guys at the top of their field to make for an exciting fight. These guys were well matched, and Guerrero proved why they call the final 3 rounds the championship rounds. He's a guy that fights a lot on heart and adrenaline. He's the classic Mexican or Mexican-American warrior-style guy. You know, he proudly goes out on his shield if he needs to, and he's there for the fans. And that's what makes a guy that people want to see, you know, paid or not, over and over. They don't really care what the record says when a guy like that gets in the ring and makes it fun. Thurman had everything he could handle, but he handled it well, and he's destined for bigger things, and hopefully he'll be brought along at a pace fast enough to keep everyone interested, but not so fast he goes tumbling down, because I think he did reveal a few weaknesses that he'll need to work on, but all good for him. And in general, that fight was fun to watch, and thank God that it erased the horrible, stinky, boring Broner fight that opened that card on TV. But man, if that's the only thing a new boxing fan saw, we'll never see him again. It's a horrible fight.
I slightly disagree with you, but I'm going to go back on that. EJ, your impressions of Thurman and Guerrero, to Gail's point, to follow up Gail's point, did you notice did Guerrero expose any weaknesses on Thurman? I personally thought Thurman, he performed very well. Guerrero was tough. He had a really good couple of rounds. But Thurman, for the most part, he had his way most of the night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did have his move most of the night. Most of the night, I think that head clash, that massive swelling what was caused over it, that hematoma was horrible. And Thurman showed true grit to fight with that massive hematoma in his head. But so did Guerrero, showed that, the records were pretty good. Like, it was kind of like, you looked at this fight, well, Guerrero wants to win and Thurman definitely wanted to win. And they brought their A game, and that's why that fight beat him, because Guerrero, he was down on the scorecards. It's lucky he went 15 rounds, mate. That'd have been interesting. And he was coming back, man. Round 10, he was just putting it on Keith Thurman, boy. But that, like Gil said, that was probably the best fight of the night, and I very definitely enjoyed that fight. That was a fight, like, I'm glad that TV people had to see that fight, man. And, Guerrero, he lost, he gave up too many rounds, man. But it was still interesting in the rounds, though. It was still interesting in the fight. When he got knocked down on his back, man, boy, come back from that knockdown, and that was impressive as well. That was a very good fight. For network TV, very good. And the girl was right. Because he lost, it doesn't matter. It's the way you lost or what you did in the fight. And we can all appreciate that. And Keith Thurman, good play to him, goes on. But yeah, like Girl said, I want to see Keith. I'll tell you what, from that fight, I became a fan of Robert Guerrero when I watched that fight. I said, yeah, you know what, I want to see Robert Guerrero. And I don't know if we're going to talk about the Adrien Broner thing a bit later, but for me, the Adrien Broner thing was an acquired taste, because I had to watch it a second time to say, you know what, it was actually a good performance by Broner. And really looking at John Molina didn't bring his A game. Whether because he's been knocked out a couple of times, he didn't want to be embarrassed in front of millions and millions of people. And Adrien Broner played it safe because he didn't want to embarrass as well. So you had a kind of a fight where basically they were fighting not to lose, but they didn't want to risk anything. So, but Broner really did, he did what he's gonna do. Like, it was a good performance. Broner completely shut him out, man. Completely shut him out. Showed that that thing wasn't even on his level. It showed that John Molina wasn't on his level. That wasn't a good fight for. I was expecting more, but in the day, the two guys had a lot to lose if they lost, so they didn't want to be embarrassed. But the main event was the main event, and that was a good fight. That was good for boxing. I think overall the card, I think it was good, but I'm interested in tomorrow, and I'm gonna save my judgment for that. So overall, I think it was a good start, and the views I found out later on, they had some good views, man. I had the numbers done pretty well over there in the States, so mine is pretty good. So that's what I really got to say about it.
3.5 million rating, 3.5 rating, I think it was, here in the States. Shawn, impressions on PBC on our big Al Haymon event, and as well as Guerrero and Keith Thurman.
I think Thurman definitely saved that card. At least made the first impression much more appetizable for everybody. This fight showed you, two different things. You had a mismatch. Both fights were mismatches. But on one side, you had two fighters that brought it. Thurman, who started aggressively, he didn't fight just boxing on the outside. He went for the KO, and he went for it early and sort of got Guerrero back on his heels. And, dominated most of the fight. I had Guerrero winning 2 rounds. But, Guerrero at the same time showed, like, EJ just said, why now I have even more respect for him, because he has heart. And even though he was being outboxed, he still brought it, and he still tried hard. He still pressured and pushed him, and made it a competitive fight. Even though, on the cards, he lost easily. But, if you watch the fight, you wouldn't focus so much on that. You focus on the fact that he was there, he was trying. Unlike the other card, where you have Broner, who never really stepped out of his comfort zone. He just used his jab all night and stayed at a distance. And Molina, who never was willing to take anything to give anything. And that's the fighter he is. He's the only kind of guy who can pressure and hope to land a punch. And not once that whole fight did he do that. And this was his big chance on public TV. And he blew that. We'll never see him on public TV again. But Guerrero, we will. And of course, Broner and Thurman, we will. But Thurman, he pushed his stock up. Broner, he hasn't really made a name for himself, I don't think.
Let me ask you a follow-up question, and Shawn, and then Gail and EJ, you can respond. Last week I said that Guerrero has been reduced to strictly a brawler, a fighter, as he's moved up in weight, and it showed in this case. We talk about how he performed admirably in the last third of the fight, and I agree with that. Thurman, on the other hand, he came in at 147. He went all the way up to 162 pounds, Shawn. It is my belief that Thurman, he may have some issues making welterweight. Do you think the way he slowed down later on in that fight, and by the way, I should mention Ben Umar's joined us. What's up, brother? Thurman, do you think it's because of? Do you think, Shawn, that Thurman, the reason he slowed down may be due to an issue of him having difficulty making 147 pounds?
I don't know if it was that or that he just used a lot of energy early, being really aggressive, going for the KO. I mean, you know, the way he fought Bundu, which was much more, you know, on his back foot, using his jab and moving a lot more and not being so aggressive. If he would have fought more like that against Guerrero, I'm sure at the end of the fight he would have had a little more juice in his tank. That's what you have to give Guerrero credit for. I mean, you know, even though he was out of the fight, he still pushed Keith and proved that he could go 12 hard rounds.
Join us live right now, as I said before, on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Ben Umar. Unmute your mic, brother. Unmute your mic, Ben. He's not. I don't think he can hear us right now. So I'll go to you, Gail and EJ. A follow-up question. The future for Thurman. What do you see in his future? 147. We talk about Mayweather and Pascal. That is the big fight, of course. But below them, you got Khan. You got Kell Brook, you got Maidana, you got some other fighters on the come up. Young prospects like Errol Spence. I think he's on the come up. He'll be fighting for a title, I think, in the next year or so. What do you think is the future for a Keith Thurman?
Well, Thurman is the heir apparent and is being anointed the heir apparent, and he's going to get whatever he and more properly what Al Heyman wants for him. And it's going to be wherever the money is and the bigger opponents are. Whoever is willing to step up and who feels the return on the investment is big enough will give him a shot, knowing perfectly well what he's capable of. But I do agree that he seemed to either be playing it safe near the end of the fight or running out of gas or something. Whether it was making weight, who knows. My concern with Thurman slightly there is he didn't either have the will or the ability to seal the deal. Now, is that a testament to Guerrero, or is that a knock on Thurman? And I think we're going to need another fight to figure out the answer to that question for sure. We know Guerrero is tough. I mean, this is the guy that was in a Fight of the Year candidate last year with Kamagai, and so, it might be right down the middle, but we're going to need another fight with Thurman to see. But I think he probably performed better, perhaps more comfortably at the higher weight. But I think the problem is going to be the money is going to be in the 147 class for him. So he's got a bit of a challenge on his hands.
EJ Boxing Live, the future of Keith Thurman. What do you see?
He looks bright, man. He has to wear shades, man. For real. Keith Thurman, I think, he's already been made a regular champion. He's in a good position. I know Mayweather doesn't have to fight him, but, maybe WBA could push that fight, the winner of Pacquiao, maybe he could get the winner out of that. Remember, he's affiliated with Al Heyman. The Kell Brook fights on the cards, see what happens there. I mean, Khan's talking. There's a lot of possibilities. Keith Thurman's in a really good position. And you know what? On network TV, people want to see him again. I like to see Keith Thurman on network TV. Hopefully that swelling goes down and we see what happens. But Keith Thurman, I think, to be honest with you, he looks pretty bright, man. For me, he proved something. He was the first guy to floor Guerrero at welterweight, and he did it. And it's a shame he couldn't finish him. But who does finish Guerrero? Guerrero's never been finished. Guerrero showed that he's got a great chin. And Keith Thurman shows he has good power. So for me, we'll see what happens. On and upwards for Keith Thurman. We'll see. I mean, if Mayweather and Pacquiao will lead the sport, Keith Thurman's right there with Kell Brook looking to take over the welterweight division. So I think things look good for him.
And the reason I mentioned Errol Spence before, I'm gonna think real long term and really go out there on a limb. I would love to see in 2016 if Thurman can make the weight comfortably. I would love to see him fight Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence is that good. I think he's an improving fighter. The talent is obviously there. You hear the rumors about how he whooped up on Adrien Broner in the gym a couple of years ago. That's my long-term position. That's my long-term fight. What's your thoughts on that? Anybody can chime in.
You're not the only one who said that. Someone else has said that. A lot of people are saying that Errol Spence is the type of guy to take over. A lot of people are not really saying that, but a lot of people are saying that in the boxing circles. That's all I got to say about that.
Chris Caban join us. Can you hear us, Chris? Chris Caban, can you hear us? I guess he can't hear us. Gail, Shawn, any thoughts about my long-term prognostication, or my long-term wish, should I say?
Hey, Mike, I'm here. Can you repeat your long-term wish, brother?
Yeah, Benny wants to join us right now. I was talking about the future for Keith Thurman, and my long-term, what I see long-term is a possible matchup between him and Errol Spence. Should Thurman be able to make that 147-pound limit? I think Errol Spence is that talented. I think he's like a year or so away from a world title shot, and I would love to see him and Thurman get it on in, say, 2016.
Hey, I can't really add much to that. I think Errol Spence is a supreme talent. You just see the way he digs those body shots and the way he goes body and head. He's an excellent fighter, and but I don't think he's there yet. I think if they put him, because he was talking to you in the interview saying he's ready for Thurman now, whatever. I think he's ready for Thurman now. In a year's time, I think he'll be ready for Thurman, and I think that'll be a great fight. I completely agree with you.
I want to move on to the other fight in the card. I'll go back to you, Ben. Unmute your mic. We've heard a lot of discussion about Adrien Broner's performance over John Molina. I'm going to be a bit of contrarian here. Was Broner the most exciting guy? No, but I'm a bit biased here. I like guys with skill. I like boxers. And watching the fight, I like what I saw from Broner. I like the jab. Could he have done more? Should he have done more? Yeah, but to me, the overall skill that he showed, he dominated the fight. I wasn't mad at his performance. Ben, Chris, anybody can chime in?
I wasn't mad at his performance either, but I think Broner fell into a comfort zone where he thinks that he's better than he is, in my opinion. And I think the way he was talking after the fight worried me. When he's talking about, I'll never be in a hard fight ever again, knowing good and well, there's too many good fighters I'll even see him out. That worried me a bit because I think he's full of himself a little bit, and he needs to keep at the grindstone. But I think he's a good fighter, and I didn't have a problem with his performance. I thought it was a good performance, but he needs to keep doing what he's doing and not think he's better than he is, and not get ahead of himself again and then run into another Madonna.
Piggyback on Ben's point, Gail. Your thoughts on your official viewpoint of Broner's win over Molina Saturday night on the undercard of Thurman Guerrero.
There were two outcomes from that fight that I want to mention. First, I agree. He coasted a bit through that fight, and one thing that really irritates me with fighters is someone who has generous natural gifts, like an Adrien Broner, who doesn't do what he can to maximize them. And it wasn't a title fight, but nevertheless, he came in over 140 pounds. This is something he continues to do. The rumor was he sat in the sauna for 3 days straight to even get down that far. So he can be very undisciplined about making weight. Another grave irritation with me. And I think that you're absolutely right, Ben. He thinks much more highly of himself than he should. And the minute he runs into somebody that he can't handle, that's going to become apparent. But it was less about Broner winning that fight than John Molina losing that fight. John Molina failed to show up. Where was the John Molina who banged it with Lucas Matisse last year? Where the hell was that guy? He just was MIA. I don't know if it was the big stage. I don't know whether he was intimidated, whether he thought he was going to get more to play counterpunch patty cake whip, I don't know. That was an enormous disappointment to me about John Molina. And you're absolutely right. He's not going to be back on PBC or network anytime soon. He's got a long way to earn his way back. Broner, there's some talk about Broner meeting Amir Khan on the undercard of Mayweather-Pacquiao. Now, that would be interesting, and I have to admit, I'm one of many people who'd like to see Khan pour a big, generous dose of whoop-ass on Adrien Broner. We'll see if it happens. And I'm not a Broner fan, and as you could tell if you were watching the broadcast, those in the MGM were not Broner fans either.
Chris Campbell, if you could hear us chime in, your thoughts on Broner and John Molina. I guess Chris can't hear us right now. I'll go to you, EJ, and then you can follow up, Shawn. Your thoughts on that fight between Broner and Molina?
Oh yeah. Because I just feel like I think Molina was worried about being knocked out. He's been beat up and knocked out a couple of times. Broner don't want to be embarrassed like Marcus McDonough. He didn't want that happening to him again, and they just played it safe. But John Molina really played it safe. I think he said after the fight he didn't stand with you. Yeah, he did stand with you. Maybe even hitting the head too many times to realize he was right in front of you, pushing the jab in the pit of your stomach and jabbing you to the head and throwing hooks. So he was in front of you, but you weren't doing nothing because he waits for someone's offense to stop before he starts throwing punches. And Broner wasn't laying up, man. Broner was, putting it on him. And Molina, yeah, he underplayed, but let's think about this. Molina got knocked out by DeMarco, and Broner knocked out DeMarco. And, in levels, if it was lightweight, Adrien Broner should have knocked him out. But Adrien Broner's not the same dude no more. This is not the same Adrien Broner we know from the lightweights. He's lost against Madonna, and he's been embarrassed all over Twitter. Didn't want that happening to him again. And Molina, finally, like Gail pointed out, but he's been knocked out. We don't know what that did to him. So you had basically two weary guys, and they took him in front of millions of people. Both of them were shy, and then that's it. But Broner wasn't too shy. Anyone can get it. Americans, Mexicans, yeah, they stopped him. But in my opinion, both of them didn't turn up. So that's the way I see it. They didn't turn up. But Broner won good though. Broner did what he did. He played it safe and he won comfortably, in my opinion.
Before we move on to more pressing matters, your impressions of the fight, Shawn?
Yeah, I mean, Molina was fed to Broner to make him look good, but unfortunately he didn't even do that because he never brought it. I mean, here's a guy that lost his last 2 fights. He lost his last 3 fights before this fight. Oh no, sorry, he got the late stoppage, but was getting his ass kicked in the fight against the Floyd fighter. I can't remember his name. But was getting outboxed left, right, and center, and then landed a
Mickey Bay?
Mickey Bay, yeah. And landed that left punch.
Mute your mic, Chris. Mute your mic, Chris. We're hearing you in the background. Go ahead. Go ahead, Shawn.
Hi. Yeah, I was just going to say, he's just not a fighter at Broner's level. And it's unfortunate because, you put 2 fighters in there that just didn't have, it wasn't a good matchup. And it was too bad. But luckily, Thurman's fight saved the card. I mean, I would have liked to see Broner try to go for a little more, considering that he was winning easily and his speed was too much for him. And he was using distance and space really well and using the jab up and down. But outside of the jab, he didn't throw too much more, which was too bad.
Yeah, absolutely. You're listening to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Joining me live from Taiwan, Shawn Newton. Live from California, Gail Falkenthal of Community Digital News. Ben Umar joined us, EJ Boxing Live, as well as Chris Campbell. Give me and EJ the floor for a second when we talk about this next fight. And the reason I say that, EJ, more than anybody I know within the YouTube boxing community, we talk about the lightweight fighters. We went back and forth on this guy on Amnat Ruenrong, holds the IBF flyweight belt. He went to enemy territory, defeated Zou Shiming in Macau, 12-round decision, easy decision as far as I'm concerned to retain the belt. EJ Boxing Live, when are folks going to wake up and listen to us when we talk about Amnat Ruenrong and how good of a fighter he is?
Hey man, Amnat Ruenrong is a really good fighter, man. and he showed what it was about. You gotta look at this guy. In his first defense, he went to Japan. What's the guy's name? Is it Kamida?
Kazuka Ioka.
Kazuka Ioka, and that's in his first defense in Japan. Kazuka Ioka was at that point a 2-weight champion, undefeated. Right? He beat him, and he beat him comfortably, because I done commentary on that fight. Check out EJ Boxing Live on my channel. That was a very, actually not on that channel, it's another channel. Don't worry about it. Anyway, he beat him comfortably. You know? He beat him comfortably, yeah, in my opinion, in that fight. Then not only that, yeah, he defends the belt again in Thailand against a dangerous hitter. Was it Mac? Is it Mac Jones?
Williams Arroyo.
Mac Williams Arroyo. Defended against him, a very dangerous banger, right? Then he goes to China in Macau and faces the Fist of Gold and puts on a boxing lesson. People were shocked. Like I knew this already. The guy's pedigree is really good. You know, I didn't know about the prison stuff, and he'd been to prison and he this and that. But that guy put on a masterclass of boxing, and then I don't know where Zau's going to go from now. But that was a masterclass of boxing, and then people know who he is, man. He doesn't fight like a normal Thailand fighter. I almost say he got the Philly show. His movement, his jab, he had a long reach, he uses it well. Really good boxing. He don't necessarily knock you out, but he just schools you, and it was easy for him. And that was a good fight. It was a bit messy, you know, when he was jumping. They fell down and that, but he got knocked down. Whether you could argue whether that was a knockdown or not, but that was a really entertaining fight, and people know who he is now. You know, it was a good meet, and I don't know where Zou goes, because the people in the boxers, the champions in that division, I tell you what, yeah, Amnat Ruenrong wasn't the easiest one, but he was the one that most people would like to face. You ain't gonna get one over Juan Francisco Estrada. You ain't gonna get that one over Chocolito. No, you're not. You're not. Them guys will knock you out probably. So it was a great performance, and Amnat Ruenrong, I'm happy that the world get to see his talents out there on the big stage.
Ben Umar, if you could hear me, unmute your mic, please.
Yeah, I'm here, Mike.
Your impression? Did you see the fight first of all, and if so, your impressions of Amnat Ruenrong's win over Zou Shiming?
I didn't catch the whole fight. I caught bits and pieces of it, but only thing I can really speak to, because I haven't seen the whole fight, is speak to what I thought going in that. I knew that Zou Shiming wasn't ready for that, and I figured that they pushed him way too fast for that, because I've seen Ruenrong fight before, and he's a good fighter, and I never was a believer in Zou Shiming in the slightest. I think the guy slaps with his punches. He's not fundamentally sound for a guy that's won, what he won, 2 gold medals?
Yeah.
I believe?
Yeah.
For a guy that's won 2 gold medals, he's not fundamentally sound to me, and I never thought he was going to win that fight. Like, I was never a believer in him. I know he had a lot of hype because when he debuted, they gave him $200,000 or 500,000 yen, whatever it is, whatever Chinese money is, whatever. A lot of money to be on HBO, to headline a card, which he didn't deserve, in my opinion, because there's a lot of fighters out there that, you know, still, like look at it last week, the PBC, the guy that fought, what's the guy that fought on the card that didn't even make it on the
Abner Mars?
I'm sorry.
Abner Mars?
Okay, Abner Mars made $500,000, but his opponent made $20,000. And that guy's a blood and guts warrior. That guy's been, plying his trade for years. He's only making $20,000 on a card, right? And this guy's coming right out of nowhere and making $500,000 on his first card. Like, there's guys out there that deserve that type of money, and they've been giving it to Zou Shiming on a silver platter. And I never thought he was ready for that. I think they pushed him because he was a 2-time gold medalist winner. But when you're in the Olympics and when you're an amateur, it doesn't always translate. I mean, look at David Reed. David Reed was accomplished in somewhat. He won the title, I guess, but he washed out. Like, Olympics doesn't always translate to pros, in my opinion. I don't think Zou Shiming is ever going to translate. I think he'll pick up a belt because they're going to find a way for him to pick up a belt, and we all know that these belts are like crackerjack prizes. They're everywhere. He'll pick up a belt, but I don't think he's going to really deserve it. I don't think he's ever going to amount to much as a pro.
Gail and Chris, if you can hear us, unmute your mic. Chris, I'll go to you. Gail, Chris, in watching Amnat Ruenrong, first of all, brief analysis of his win over Shiming, but in terms of Ruenrong, what is to think about him that impresses you the most?
I liked how busy he was, and I like his aggression. You know, and let's compare him to what we just talked about between Broner and Molina. This is a guy who is not afraid to lose, and you have to not be afraid to lose. Let it overcome your desire to win. This guy wants it bad, and when you fight with heart, you've got a very powerful weapon on your side along with whatever your physical talents are. And he worked Shiming, and as the fight went on, Shiming was less and less willing to engage. Freddie Roach practically got down on his knees begging him to engage, and he wouldn't do it. And that's got to be frustrating for a trainer, incredibly frustrating. Yeah, he was exposed, and he, in his defense, as a professional, he's being brought along very fast. Top Rank is extremely anxious to open up the Chinese market and dominate it because there is so much money there available. So they are pushing him very hard, and he has made great improvements from that first couple of fights, which were just awful. He is improving. He's improving at a fairly normal rate, but they're not giving him the time he needs to develop, and it's going to hurt him. It's going to hurt him. They want short-term gain, and you know that is not what he needs right now. So you know the outcome is he lost this fight, and the Chinese public will forgive him. They love him. But they need to be careful with him the next few fights.
Yeah, to follow up, Shiming is set to fight July the 18th in Macau. I'll go to you on this one, Shawn. Where does Ruenrong go? I'm not sure. Afterwards, he talked about he wanted to unify the belt. For those who don't know, Juan Francisco Estrada, the WBC, WBA, IBF. WBA, he has 2 belts, and Roman Gonzalez, he has the WBC belt. Your impressions of the fight, and how would you compare a Ruenrong to the 2 big names in the division, Estrada and Chocolatito Gonzalez?
He fought great, and I mean, you know, I agree with Gail. I think Shiming was sort of pushed in because of his ties to China and big money gateway into the East. But Ruenrong looked excellent, and I mean, you know, his arm reach and stuff is going to give everybody a problem. I want to see him step up. Him against Estrada, I think that should be the next fight for him because he's proven that he is the 3rd best fighter in that weight. I mean, outside of Estrada and Roman Gonzalez, who else is better than him? I mean, I would say he has more skill than either one of those 2 guys as well. And he will be a tough matchup for both of them because they're both going to have a hard time getting past his jab. And then when they do get past, they're going to be walking into that uppercut. So, you know, it's going to be a good fight. The one thing he does show that he can be hit, and maybe he's not the most sturdy guy as far as his chin. I mean, he was knocked down in his last fight before Shiming, but got up and won the fight, so showed lots of heart. And I mean, being a guy that like learned his craft in prison, I mean, I'm sure he's a hard guy. But let's hope that he steps up and takes that challenge because that's the fight we want to see. I mean, maybe Roman Gonzalez is busy right now, but Estrada, what does he have going on really? This is the fight that they should make.
I don't think Bob Arum will make that fight.
Who else has he got?
I think
he has no one.
I think he's going to hold on to Estrada, at least to fight Brian Valora in the rematch. Maybe after that, who knows? But he's going to make the Valora rematch first.
Sure.
Hey, Mike, can I comment on that?
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Oh man, I'm a huge Juan Francisco Estrada fan, man. I think that dude's a freaking savage. I'm one of the very few people around that believes that Estrada beat Chocolatito. I know a lot of people believe Chocolatito won that fight. Estrada won that fight, and I'm one of the very few people. I think he's the best at that weight class, even though I got nothing respect for Chocolatito. But I don't think Ruenrong can beat either one of them, in my opinion. And I think it would be a great fight, but I don't think he'd beat any of them. And I definitely don't think he's beating Estrada. I think Estrada's a beast, and that's just my opinion. I think that guy is just his work rate. his work rate is incredible. Go anybody that hasn't ever watched this guy fight, go watch him fight Brian Valoria and watch how Brian Valoria comes out with nothing but energy, nothing but fight, and just watch how he breaks him down. It was beautiful, in my opinion. He just took the fight out of that man. I've very rarely seen somebody just beat the fight out of somebody like that in my life, and it was beautiful to me. And that's just my opinion.
I agree. I agree with Umar. I agree with Umar, man. If they Runway would get rounds on him, no doubt. But the moment they touch that chin, boy, he's in trouble. And hopefully the fight's a neutral ground where, like, if it's in Thailand, if he's in Thailand, they ain't gonna get a decision because it's hard to get.
Aaron not bringing him out to Thailand, no way.
No. I'm saying to you. So if it's not in Thailand, they have a chance to beat him. I feel Runway will win the early rounds just by out jabbing, but he seemed like he's fading these days. Chocolito they will cut him down to rhythms. They will cut him down. He's a good fighter, no doubt. He's good, but I don't think he'd go this because he don't have enough power to set them off to make them respect it. They'll walk right through him, right? He can outbox them and thing, but the moment they start touching him up, he's gonna be in trouble. But we don't know, man. He might grab on because he's very good at. He knows how to clinch and hold on for dear life. You know, he did it against Matt Williams or Royal, and you know he
sure did.
Yeah, and so he knows how to get off from the ground and win. But like if you're going against Chocolito and think they're different animals, man. I agree with Umar, man. Them guys are good, but I disagree with Umar about the Estrada fight and the Chocolito fight. Chocolito won that fight, but anyway, we could talk about that. But I agree with that one, but it'll be a good fight, man. I agree that he should fight one Estrada first, and then after that try and Chocolito. But we'll see. Hopefully that.
But to Ben Umar's point, we're going to move on. Juan Francisco Estrada, who holds the WBA and WBO belt. I got it right. He over the past 2.5, 3 years, he is one of the more improved fighters in the world. The fight with Gonzalez, November 2012, was one of the fights of the year. It happened around Thanksgiving Day weekend in Anaheim. I thought Chocolatito won, but I could see Umar's point. I could see why he feels Estrada won. It was that close. Toughest fight of Gonzalez's career. They should fight again. I don't know why they haven't at this point, but yeah, Estrada, he is the goods in a flyweight division that's really loaded right now, particularly at the top. I'll go to you on this one, Shawn. We talked about this fight, Zolani Tete fighting Paul Butler. I foolishly thought, and you can follow up, Errol, I foolishly thought that Butler would coming in, but in watching the fight, and you can check it out on the Pound for Pound Box Report G Plus page. I have a link to that fight. I believe it's on YouTube as well. Tete, he destroyed Butler. Absolutely destroyed him. 5'9" junior bantamweight with a 6'72" reach. He has the reach of a 6-foot guy. He's a condor, Shawn. A condor. The jab was awesome. The skill was awesome. He moved. And the uppercut in the 8th round that finished him off, beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, what can we say? I mean, you know, a lot of people I know, Errol and you were talking about this before, thought that basically he was being brought to England as like an easy fight for Butler. But he proved that he is no easy fight for anybody. And then in that division, he is somebody to be reckoned with. Because the same as Runway. These guys have such long reaches, and they are boxers, and unlike some fighters, they utilize their jab and they utilize distance, and they make it hard for guys to get inside. You don't want to walk inside on him because that uppercut was big, and he finished the fight with an exclamation point with that. It was a great ending to a good fight. And nothing against Butler. I mean, watching Butler, you could see he's a skilled fighter, and I mean, you know, he was in there trying to think, how can he get inside? You know, that it was a lot harder than he had trained and thought it was going to be. And, you know, he's more of a boxer, and then he had to change and try to get inside and, you know, walk right into that big punch that just finished the day. I mean, it would be good to see him fight somebody, you know, that maybe didn't have so many advantages over him. And it'll be interesting to see what Tete does, you know, as far as fighting the top-level guys in that division. Like, I mean, Inui and others. Maybe a good fight for him would be Navarez. You know, just push his name.
Navarez don't want none of him. I'm sorry.
I know. But Navarez, at least, you know, he's a veteran, so and he has the name. So it would be another test fight for him.
I go to you, EJ. I believe you had some commentary on this fight over the weekend. Your thoughts on Tete's devastating performance over Butler?
Yeah, I mean, look, man, I have to be real. You know, this you have to give 100%. I believe that when I saw the fight, I didn't check up Tete too much. I thought me and Boxing beat some Ryan. We thought they brought him over here to get bashed up. That's what they normally do. But when he get in the ring, and I saw on the way, and I said, hold on, this guy's pretty tall. And he's lost a bit. But in my mind, guys, losses don't really mean anything if you learn from it. He's shown like he's done his apprenticeship. And he won the vacant title, but this was his first defense. When he got in the ring, man, I could tell you from round one, I he ain't gonna win this fight. Someone's called. I don't know what's going on. Someone's being called at the minute. I don't know if that's me.
It's not me.
Hold on 1 second. Hey, Mike, you continue. I think it might be me.
Go ahead. I'll go to you on this one, Gail. If you saw the fight, your impressions of unmute your mic, please. If you saw the fight, Gail, your impressions of Tete's dominant win over Paul Butler.
It was dominant and not too surprising. And I think that it's hard to say what's going to be in his future. But opportunities always come down to the risk versus reward ratio. You get enough money involved, and people are willing to take chances. Here's the unfortunate part: for the guys in the lower, smaller weight classes, the money isn't there like the big guys. So the risk-reward ratio is much more difficult. You're risking a whole lot more to get a lot less. And that's why the good matchups sometimes don't happen in these smaller weight classes.
I'll go to you on Shawn.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. I'll go to you on this one, Shawn, and you can follow up EJ and Gail. When you look at the future of Tete, I mean, you got the fighters at 112, the fighters I mentioned, Rung Roy, Estrada, Gonzalez. At 115, you got Inouye, who destroyed Omar Narvaez last year to win the WBO title. Where do you see Tete's big fight coming from? Who in the world is going to have the guts enough to get in the ring with him? And how do you compare him to the fighters around the 115, 112 range?
Well, he showed that he's right up there, but I mean, as the way the things are currently, I don't know if there's a fight for him in the next year. We sort of have to wait to see how things pan out and see how other fights work out and who's left standing, and maybe he'll have somebody to face, like a Roman Gonzalez or an Inouye who are planning on fighting sometime down the road. Or maybe for him, maybe moving up, because he is a tall guy. I mean, how much difficult would he have putting on 3 pounds to move to the next weight? And then he has a whole new division of opportunity.
Tete Yamanaka.
Yeah. And I mean, if he's willing to go to Japan, I'm sure Yamanaka is willing to bring him over. Because the Japanese guys, they're not afraid to fight anybody. And for him, it would probably be his best financial gain. Sort of like Rigo now going over there to get paid.
If you could unmute your mic, Ben, Umar. If you saw the fight, your impressions of Tete's win over Butler.
I remember speaking about this earlier. I didn't see the fight. I'm still waiting for Arrow to send me the footage. He's slacking on that. He's slacking on that. I can't really speak. What were you guys talking about? You said that Tete is. What'd you say? He's like 6 feet tall.
He's
fighting at that weight class.
He's 5'9", but he got a 72-inch reach, which is like the reach of a 6-foot guy.
5'9" at Paul Butler's weight class is kind of serious. Like that. Like I can't really speak on the fight because I haven't seen it. I heard that the knockout was great, but that guy.
If you check the private chat here, Ben, I'm gonna get you a link right quick. Keep talking.
Okay, please, but. That kind of reminds me of like when Paul Williams is at welterweight at 6'1", and Tommy Hearns at welterweight at what was Tommy Hearns, like 6'2"?
Right.
Like that's just abnormal stuff. And there was and then there's another guy that I'm gonna mention. Since I didn't see the fight, I'll take my time to mention Robert Trouble Easter. Okay, he fights at featherweight. He's about 6'2" with a 70+ reach advantage at featherweight, at 126. Guys like that are freaks of nature. When you're that tall and you're able to make that type of weight, that's a problem for those guys, because guys at 126 are normally 5'4", with barely 50-inch reaches. That's going to be trouble for them, man. And I just want to mention, like I just said, I just want to mention Robert Trouble Easter. I think he's coming up. I think he's going to be one of the best featherweights you're going to see in a long time. Watch out for Trouble Easter.
Hey,
but that's just, I just want to mention his name. But I haven't seen the fight. I haven't seen the fight.
That's what it was. It was a complete bullying. Like, it was a complete bullying. Butler, like, completely out of it. He didn't know what he was going to do. The corner didn't know what to do. The corner was telling him, you do this combinations. You need to get it. I was like, he ain't going to win the fight. The jab he put on him, and he put that right hand, his southpaw, his Tete. I was saying it was reminiscent. His jab was reminiscent of the old master, like Joe Gans. It was a masterclass of boxing. People in England, are fans of Tete after seeing that fight. Tete was like, who's this guy? Where's he been? How comes who beat him? Because this they're looking at how do you even get in there? Another thing about Butler, was Butler really that good? Okay, we can look. Butler won a world championship at a higher weight, and he vacated the belt to go to a smaller weight because Frank Warren felt like he'd be better at a smaller weight. Well, in my opinion, if you win a world title, you won a world title. You should stick around to defend it. I think they gambled. It was a big mistake, right? And now I don't know what Butler does, because Butler will never win a world title again. Not in that weight class. Do you know the monsters in that weight class is ridiculous. Tete is just starting these things. It's just starting his reign as a champion. And already they've lined the IBF of Manchuri's fight against Joe Morrell. He'll be fighting him in his next fight. So we'll be interested to see that fight. But for me, I think Tete can beat most of the guys. That's with that reach, and he has good power as well. He's got I think it's 20 fights now with 17 knockouts. So he either stops you or you could beat him on points maybe. So in my opinion, Tete, one to watch. And guys, listening to this podcast here, make sure you go check out the footage. Tete versus Paul Butler. That's what I got to say, really.
Yeah, Ben, I shared it here in the chat, but I also shared it with you on Cheat Plus. So check it out there once we finish the show or during the show. I shared the fight with you there publicly. So let's move on to the news segment. The big news of the week, of course, was the press conference between Mayweather and Pacquiao, which took place yesterday at the Nokia Theater in L.A. I'll give the floor to Gail since she was there at the press conference. And Gail, for those who don't know, she will be at the fight. She got her press credentials, so she will be there live at the fight. Mayweather Pacquiao May 2. She will be there. Lucky her. Good to work in media, and just for folks who think I just talked to some random folks. I actually know people who are in the sport who really cover it hardcore. So there you go. I will give Gail the floor. Let her comment and give her observation of the press conference which took place yesterday in L.A.
Well, I'm sure many of you watched it. I mean, this thing was covered live, wall-to-wall, numerous places around the world. So most of you saw exactly what we saw inside the Nokia Theater going on. And it was every bit as staged as any L.A. production you could possibly imagine. It was scripted. It was controlled. It was staged for maximum effect. You had both of the combatants coming in via the audience. Mayweather down one side, which, by the way, was where his entourage was sitting, and Pacquiao down the other side, which, by the way, was where his entourage was sitting, up to a bare stage in front of a huge curtain to get the face-off that we've been imagining and seen, photoshopped versions of for 5 years. Finally, we got the real thing. And it was extremely calm and very anticlimactic. Is that going to be a preview of the fight? Is it going to be anticlimactic? I don't know. The environment was a little clean for my liking, funny enough, and very much my reaction was the same to the first PBC card. very sterile, very clean, very prettied up for networks. No four-letter words, nothing the kiddies couldn't see. Maybe that's good long-term for boxing to make it palatable to greater broad spectrum of the public, but I'm not quite used to that, and I'd like to see things a little more raw, a little more passionate. The passion yesterday was not at the Mayweather-Pacquiao event. It was at the Kovalev-Pascal event where they decided to play patty cake, and Pascal, knocked the hat off Kovalev's head and got a shove for his trouble. But the staging, to the credit of the half dozen PR folks had to wrangle this thing in fairly short order, was very well done, was very well organized. I was there with 699 of my best friends in the media, which was entertaining. A lot of them being general Los Angeles broadcast media who've never covered a fight in their lives. And a colleague of mine, whether this is true or not, I'm going to repeat the story, said she was asked by somebody there, "What's a face-off?"
Oh dear.
Oh dear is right. Well, they got to see what that was about. Even the remarks, as you can see, were fairly well scripted. I did find it very entertaining that they did not let Floyd Sr. get up and talk at all inside. He did sound off outside, but not inside where they had to be polite for network TV. The only sort of in-your-face comment was made by, God bless him, Freddie Roach, who you can always count on. He knows exactly how far he can push things, and told Floyd that Manny was going to kick his ass. That's about as confrontational as it got. The one thing we did get some insight on, though, is how these two are going to try to get into each other's head. Floyd is going to try to get into Manny's head about having losses on his record when Floyd doesn't. And said yesterday, as you might recall, a guy, these fights are won in the mind, and in the mind of a guy who has 1 loss, 2 losses, 3 losses, he's going to be thinking about that. For Manny's part, he is going to be getting in Floyd's head by saying that this is not a fight he's worried about, that he is doing it for a greater good. He's doing it for his country, for God. I mean, he's there for a higher purpose. He seems to be having a lot more fun with this. And in the interviews he did outside, particularly with ESPN and their various programs, particularly when he was on First Take, he seems to be having fun. I don't think Floyd's having a lot of fun right now. Floyd was very subdued yesterday. If I didn't know better, I'd think somebody had given him a Xanax or shot of tequila before the news conference. He was really subdued. So it'll be interesting to see how these roles play out. But I have never seen anything like this in boxing. I mean, it was truly right up there with big world-class live events, award shows, red carpet, Goodyear blimp overhead, literally. It was amazing. I'm going to be very glad to be in Ontario for PBC on Spike tomorrow night just to see everything calmed back to normal.
I'll go to you, Daniel Moore, then you can follow up, Shawn. Speak to Gail's point about how the press conference seems sterile in her opinion, as well as the attitude of Mayweather being kind of reserved and calm down.
First of all, I need to get Gail's connection to these to get in the building, because I would love to have seen that from first hand.
I told you, I know, folks,
well, hook me up with some type of credentials, man. but I agree with her on pretty much everything she said with the way she's seen it, because Pacquiao does seem like he's having a good time and he's laughing and joking, because I watch First Take every day, okay, and I seen the First Take before the press conference went ahead, and Pacquiao's on there laughing and joking with Stephen A. Smith like he's having the best time in his life. He's just laughing.
Wasn't that a great interview by him? Just absolutely entertaining.
Yeah, it was funny. It was funny because I was laughing because every time Stephen A. would say something about Floyd, Pacquiao would look like he was just having. He was like a kid at a amusement park. He was just having such a good time. But in my opinion, at the end of the day, I don't know that that's such a good thing because Pacquiao seems like he's just happy to be there, and like Gail said, Floyd seems like he's all business. I'm taking it slightly different. I think Floyd's all business. Floyd's thinking like, I can't smile because if I lose, then all my credibility goes out the window. And I think Floyd's coming in there for business, and Pacquiao's coming in there like, if I lose, I don't lose anything. Because Pacquiao's already lost a few times, not to take nothing away from Pacquiao because I think he's a great fighter, but I think if Pacquiao loses again, it doesn't mean anything. If Floyd loses, it means everything. And I think Pacquiao's having a good time. He's a good guy. Pacquiao's not a bad guy. His fans, honestly, they come across very poorly a lot of times. Not all his fans, but they come across poorly at times. But Floyd, if he loses everything. And I think Floyd is coming in there for business. And Floyd was so serious. And I heard a lot of people saying that Floyd was scared. I didn't see him as scared, per se. I just seen Floyd as business. He had the button-up suit on. He wasn't playing games. I think it's all seriousness. And I think this is going to be a serious fight for Floyd. And I think it's a serious fight for Pacquiao. But at the same time, I think for what I seen yesterday, which means absolutely nothing, because it's just a press conference, and it doesn't tell you how they're going to fight each other, I would take it that Floyd is more serious than Pacquiao as of a press conference, but that means nothing. So you really don't know what's going to happen until they get in the ring. But what I took from that press conference is that Floyd's more ready to kill somebody than Pacquiao is, and I think that's the type of mentality they have to have. They have to come in there with a killer mentality, and I truly believe that. And I hope it's a great fight. But I honestly believe, in my opinion, I don't believe this is a competitive fight. I think Floyd's going to win this easily. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat my crow. But I don't believe it's a competitive fight. But Mike, thank you for letting me speak, and you can pass to somebody else.
Shawn, EJ, your thoughts on the press conference that went down yesterday in the Nokia Theater. To Gail's point, before you answer, the Nokia Theater, for those who don't know, that's where they hold Academy Awards, Emmys, Oscars, that kind of building.
Okay,
so that's the kind of atmosphere they're talking about. So, Shawn, EJ, your impressions of the press conference yesterday in LA.
Go ahead, Shawn.
Well, to expand on what Gail was saying, I think it's another example of Heyman really controlling things a lot. We saw that with his new TV show, and now we saw with the presentation yesterday. Very clean, limited amount of people that can be inside, not open and not open in any sense, not open to the public, not open for people's opinion. It's very controlled. And if you want to be there, you need to be a yes man and, not sort of go against sort of the norm. Which, I can understand him doing it because he's trying to get the ship moving and start something bigger than himself. But, it makes me wonder, long term, how it's going to work out when there's, no personality, when there's, no, color, Like this thing, everyone saw it, they were all excited, but everyone was sort of walked away with it was sort of boring, nothing was sort of said, both people were cordial, and, there wasn't much to it. And it was nice with the TV show, with the way they came out of the rings and no corner, no belts. The interviews were very...
It was too nice. It was too corporate.
Yeah.
And it was corporate. Yeah.
Corporate. Yeah.
And being in Southern California, and I'm going to say this, this was the Disneyland version of boxing, sanitized for your protection, both of these. One of the observations during the news conference, I had the chance before these guys came out to talk to Jimmy Lennon Jr., who was mingling with the crowd, stellar human being, by the way, and he said that he really wished that they had allowed the public inside that theater. The theater seats 7,000 plus. We probably took up 1,000 seats. Why didn't they fill the place? easily, if they were worried about security, they could have left the public in just the upper balcony areas, and they could have still had 3,000 people in there. It would have made it a completely different event, a very different electric atmosphere. I can understand if there was a security issue, especially kind of getting this thing booked on short notice. But, interesting to hear Lennon saying that. He understands, the importance of an audience. He is the guy communicating with that live audience during a bout. So he missed it, and I think he was right. I do understand the logistics of it, though, and that, to me, says a lot about how this is all going to be conducted. At the very end of the news conference yesterday, and I don't know if this part was televised or not, Leonard Ellerby of Mayweather Promotions noted that the ticket prices had been set for the bout. The lowest end tickets, $1,500 US. The highest end ticket is $7,500 US. Very few of those are ever going to be seen by the public, whether or not you've got that money in your wallet or not. Most of them are going to be spoken for by the high rollers, the VIPs, the camps. I've read as few as 1,000 out of the 15,000 seats will even truly be available. And I can only imagine the turnaround prices on something like this. So there are really going to be very few people unaffiliated and other than media inside the MGM Grand for this fight.
Before we preview the upcoming fights for the rest of the weekend, begin to shut the show down. EJ, your assessment of the press conference yesterday.
Yeah, sorry. So my impression with the whole thing. All right, let me. I get what everyone's saying about excitement and all them things there, but if you're trying to take boxing to back where it was before, if you look at the Mike Tyson press conference before the Michael Spinks, they were like this, and you're trying to attract big time sponsors and TV people, so they don't want to act like, because the reason why they used to act the fools up on the network TVs because boxing wasn't on that big stage. Now they're on this big stage and it's a bigger audience. They want to act respectful and cordial. We know they're not really like that, and in the audience would have made Floyd react a certain way. That's why they didn't have his dad say anything, because he would have done something, and it's like, oh, you're over the news, you see boxers and this, that, the other. So they didn't want to have a bad image of putting it out there. I think they want to have a clean cut kind of image. We know they don't really like that. Freud definitely not like that, because he said some stuff, and that they let his dad speak. No, Freddie's the only one who said kept it real and said what he really wanted to do. But when you said about the Academy Awards, that just shows you right there of what boxing event you have there on the Academy Awards. You can't be acting a fool on it in that sort of forum. You know what I'm saying? I know girl wants that. I know girl laughing, but you can't be acting that sort of. You can't do that. That's not happening. That is the creme de la creme. You know what I'm saying? Like, a girl said you've never been to, you were saying you've never been into that sort of thing. That's just highest thing you can stay, highest level of where boxing should be. So the two guys in our sport conducting themselves appropriately is nothing but good for boxing, in my opinion. You don't need to act the fool. You already made it. You're going to make a lot of money. The fight itself will live up to it. We don't need we like all the clown stuff. We do. We enjoy it. But in the ring, hopefully, they will deliver in the ring. Yeah, all this outside stuff, clean cut. I like it. Being respectful. I enjoy it. I don't really go for the. I don't really, to be honest, I don't gravitate towards the outside stuff. When I used to see Mike Tyson, he was never like that in the early days. He was never. It was in the ring activity. So that's hopefully the two guys could do that, and it looked like a great stage. And I actually enjoyed it. I actually thought, you know what? I liked it. It was clean cut. Said what I had to say, and they kept it moving, and that's it. I
see Gail kind of chomping at the bit there for a response.
Yeah. Well, I don't like guys acting the fool, and that's part of the reason I am not an Adrien Broner fan, because he acts the fool, and I think that is not what we're looking for. But we are looking for, find out whether they got some warm blood running through their veins. I want to see some passion. I want to see someone engaged.
They've already done it to get their careers to where they are. They've already, they can do that. They don't need to no more. It's already been done. They can't do anything that they haven't seen already. We haven't seen already. we're not gonna see anything we haven't seen already. Floyd coming with the chicken, with the gold medal round there and flashing the money. They don't need to do that. It's Manny singing. Just let in-ring stuff happen. I don't understand for you because you're there and it's like, man, I hope something happens. Like, nah, man, it's just clean cut. Get it over and done with. I don't think they're gonna do it in the next press conference. They're gonna be clean cut, respectful. If you're trying to get corporate sponsors and all these things, you can't do that. Isn't that what happened to Mike Tyson where he lost the corporate sponsors? Is when they found out with the situation where he crashed his car. That's how they lost all the sponsors. If these guys, we want our sponsors back to make our sport the biggest they're out there with basketball.
Mike Tyson lost his sponsors right up after Mitch Blood Green, that situation. That's when all them sponsors started running away.
Acting the fool. Exactly, acting the fool. Exactly, acting the fool outside the ring. This is what I'm saying to you. So if we want to bring them back with all the big stars, there's a certain way you have to conduct yourself, and we know that. And I think they're going to do it appropriately for all the young kids coming up. Why do we need to see them acting in that manner? You know, it's not befitting. We
don't need to see guys acting the fool, but we need to see guys acting with some passion. You know, these guys were very dispassionate yesterday. You know, you've got a lot of guys who show enormous respect, but you could still tell that there's a real intensity to what they're doing. And boy, I didn't see this yesterday. And yeah, we've seen this from these guys. We have followed boxing for a long time, but the general public, the broad range of fans in America and elsewhere, this is new to them. And they need to see some of what makes boxing so exciting, which is the personalities of these guys. And we know the kind of drive that it takes to get to this level of the sport. I just wish a little bit more of that drive had been on display. I mean, the only guy that showed it yesterday was Freddie Roach.
To Gail's point, most fights know Manny Pacquiao from his appearances on Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, but
more from him than they do from actually in the ring.
I mean, what I'm saying is that they don't know how to act that way because Floyd himself, you see the thing what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the clean cut like Sugar Ray Leonard. And I'll give you an example. Sugar Ray Leonard knows how to act. He's also a person you want to be around. Floyd is not like that. So basically, this is all new for them. So they don't really know how to, they don't want to act, like the fool, but they don't want to act the other way around. So it's all new ground. So they just, Manny Pacquiao was just nothing much to say. Floyd is you could read into it how you like, but yeah, you're right. It wasn't emotional, but I don't think they know how to be that way. They don't have to be charismatic. They don't know how to be that way. Manny's like that anyway. But Floyd, is either one or the other. He's either very obnoxious or he's like low key. And that's what we got. So.
Well, I did notice that he had very few of his sister wives there with him yesterday. There was only a handful of them sitting in front of me. And one of the ushers said, "Oh, if you want, I'll move you up forward. You can sit with the other ladies." And I said, I don't think that would be so good for my reputation. Thank you, but no thank you.
Okay.
Wow.
Me and Uma would have took that challenge right there. We would have
Now, usually if I want a good seat, I just tell people I'm Canelo's sister and I'm good.
Okay, cool.
So let's move on, and because we're a little bit pressed for time, let's move on and talk about what's happening in the rest of the week. And I'll go to you on this one, Ben Umar. I'm going to combine two fights into one here. Tomorrow night, Ontario, California, on Spike TV. Andre Berto is going to be fighting Josesito Lopez. Shawn Porter going to make his return to the ring following his loss to Kell Brook. He's going to be fighting Roberto Garcia. Ben Umar, your impressions on those two fights? Unmute your mic, please, sir. Can you hear me, Ben?
He's probably gone to the shops, mate.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I'll go to you on this one. Shawn. Your impressions on those two fights tomorrow. You can follow up, Arrow.
Mm-hmm. They both should be fun, exciting fights. Truthfully, I mean, they're both sort of bounce-back fights for both of them, for Arreola and Berto.
Yeah, I was talking about the Berto fight against Lopez and the Porter fight against Garcia specifically, but you can talk about Arreola as well and his overweight self.
Well, Arreola's fighting tomorrow?
Yeah, coming in at 262 pounds.
Who's he fighting?
He's fighting a guy by the name of Curtis Harper, 10-round bout.
Okay, go ahead, Shawn. Sorry, my fault. Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
so I mean, the 3 fights, it's the same, right? They're build-up fights, you know, to sort of put them on TV and get them a win so they can push them forward. I mean, you know, Porter, he lost a tough fight, but I mean, you know, it was a tough fight for a championship. So this for him is just another bounce back before he gets pushed into another big fight. So, you know, I mean, it would be nice if he really looked impressive and stepped up, which I think, you know, he should. I mean, he's sort of fighting a guy who's going to be right there for him to hit. So he should look good. And, I mean, he's a better fighter. He's far faster, so he should be able to use this to his advantage. With Arreola, I mean, you know, he's trying to get back on the heavyweight trail because the money is there, so he's hoping to push himself up. But, I mean, you know, they always are looking for a big opponent, especially in the States.
Excuse me.
You know, an American fighter. So, and he, you know, he fights tough, even though he doesn't train hard. And as far as Berto, I mean, you know, Berto is an enigma. You know, he's always supposed to be great, but he never lived up to any expectation. He was always the next great guy, but he never beat anybody. So, you know, this is just sort of his last dance. He needs to walk through this guy who hasn't looked good in his last few fights anyways, and move up to fight a solid 147-pound fighter. Maybe get a rematch with Guerrero, who looked really good against Thurman. And, you know, that would be a fight that people could sell. And if he looked impressive beating Lopez, I mean, you could see that being pushed on the next TV card.
I'll go to you on this one now. And looking at Berto and Josesito Lopez, this fight should be exciting to Shawn's point. I wouldn't be surprised if both fighters got knocked down at some point because they're so hittable and they're so vulnerable. In Berto, I'm wondering how much does he really have left? He's lost to fighters he should have very well beaten. Josesito Lopez, his last few outings has not looked good either, so that should be a good fight. And for me, Porter, I just think that his advantage in size and strength will be too much for Garcia. Garcia may land some shots, but to me, again, the strength of Porter should prevail at the end.
Yeah, I mean, both of the fights are very interesting, some good fights, but to be honest with you, I'm going to go to the Ortiz, not the Ortiz, I'm going to go to the Josesito Lopez and the Berto. They're both shot fighters. They're both like on their last legs, man. Like,
Yeah,
but I agree. They're gonna try their best. But whoever loses this fight, they need to pack up. Berto for me has $1 million body. He's so damaged with them knockouts and the beatings and that. If you look at this guy earlier on when he was beating up, I think Jan Savic and some other guy. This guy looked so skillful. Where's all that gone? You know, he looked terrible against Ortiz, and since then I think the Haiti disaster. I don't know if he trained or whatever, but he's been getting beat up terribly. And for someone who's got skills like he used to have, he fights flat-footed. When he lost to Sergey, that right there, to me, you should just give up right there. And now he's gonna get Jose. Man, he either gonna get beat up really badly. They're just gonna stand there and they're gonna beat the crap out of each other. I don't know where these two both goes. Josesito could win, but he could know because he broke thingies to his jaw. Berto might flash back in the days how he was before. If this was Berto years ago, Berto would have beat him a long time ago. But you know, they're not that good. It should be a war, and you know, for the fight fans, hopefully they both come and give it 100%. Moving on to the Porter and the Ortiz, I see a Porter knockout. He should knock him out, but Porter, if he fights the way he fought by Kell Brook with him, a legal punch around the back of the head, he ain't walking into no Paulie Amaninaji, Ben Umar's best fighter. He ain't going against him, yeah. He ain't going against him. This guy's strong, coming forward. He lost against Margarito. So you know it should be interesting. He should have enough skills, but I won't be surprised if this is an ugly, scrappy fight. Even could be like the fight with what's his name with what's that guy the other day? The terrible fight the other day. What's that guy? The guy from Argentina and the one with who's that guy who yells out all the time? You know what I'm talking about? The Mexican guy. You know the one that's trained by Robert Garcia. What's his name again?
Gosh.
Brandon Rios.
Yeah. Brandon Rios and the other guy. What's his name again? The Argentina.
Chavez.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, that's the fight. That's how that fight might turn out. On the this foul fool hitting around the back of the head and just it could end up like that, or you could have clean cut fight and someone cleanly gets knocked out. So we'll see. But either way, both of them should be entertaining, and we'll see. That's the way I see them fights. Good fights though, and they're gonna be entertaining. That's my take.
Quickly, Gail, your thoughts on those two fights?
Looking forward to being there tomorrow night. They're going to be in a nice arena. I'm going to be very curious to see how many seats are filled for this event, which will be on Spike TV, one of the lesser NBC properties under the PBC banner. Berto, you're right. You know, the Berto and Lopez fight, those guys are both damaged goods. They're being held together by duct tape at this point. And, you know, whoever's tape sprays first is going to go. You know, and it's a shame. Berto as a man, I really like him. I like what he stands for. I think he's got a lot on his plate outside of boxing. You know, it is hard to carry the weight of a whole country and culture on your shoulders, and I think that, you know, unless he has a good win, this might be it for him. Porter, I was at the Porter-Brook fight, and funny enough, as the fight wore on, you know, we're all looking at each other thinking, you know, Brooks winning this fight. Is he going to get it from the judges if it goes to the scorecards? You know, we're in Southern California. And by God, it did. And good on the judges for giving him the fight. He absolutely swarmed Porter. I think, though, that Porter thought he was farther ahead than he was. And he, you know, I don't know if he let off the gas or what the problem was. I don't think he'll make that mistake tomorrow, and he can't. As for my buddy Chris Arreola, you know, he likes his beers. He likes to party. He's a fun guy. The last time I saw him, he was supposed to have fought in the Goosen tribute fight in December and broke his hand or broke something, or I don't know what the heck he did, but he couldn't make the fight. And but he was there in the audience. Now, mind you, he was supposed to have been training really up till just a few days before when he had to pull out of the fight. And he was ringside pounding beers with everybody else. So he's talked about how he hates to run. He hates that part of it. He just likes to hit and get hit. You know, and he was down, you know, in the fight against Stavern. I think he was down to 240, which for him is rail thin, pretty much. So yesterday, you know, at his appearance, yeah, he was kind of back to normal, or just today, pardon me, at the weigh-in. You know, he's kind of back to the normal Chris, who, you know, he's done his work in the ring, but he's not exactly busting out the cardio, and I don't think he's you know, very diet disciplined. But you know, you can't help but like him. He's just a good guy.
I'm going to go to you on this one, Shawn, talk about what's happening Saturday in Montreal. I'm just going to give you the time to focus on this one fight, and then we're going to focus the remainder of the show talking about Kovalev and Pascal. Vyacheslav Glazkov is fighting Steve Cunningham, IBF eliminator. Cunningham, as far as I'm concerned, he's still a cruiserweight who's fighting in heavyweight for the money. I'm not mad at him for that. Because Glazkov, a pretty decent fighter. Your impressions of what's going to happen on the undercard of Pascal and Kovalev, with Cunningham fighting the Tsar, Glazkov?
It's a good matchup, right? They're both small heavyweights. I mean, the one advantage that Cunningham has is he's got longer reach. So that might really play into his advantage. And he's also, you know, more a faster, quicker sort of fighter.
See, that's my thing. That's going to be the difference for me.
Even though he's older, I mean, he still has those physical attributes. I mean, we don't know how it's going to play out because, I mean, Glazkov is a skilled fighter. He's got good amateur pedigree. But, I mean, he does seem a little slow-handed. But he does fight with a good jab. He does throw combinations. He does go to the body. And, I mean, you know, if he can keep the pressure on Cunningham and not get sort of stuck behind his jab, then, I mean, I think he can wear him down and get the victory. It just has to see what Cunningham brings in. If he comes in shape and, you know, sticks to his game plan, then I think he should be able to outbox Glazkov. But, you know, it's sort of like two sides of a coin. It depends on who's able to sort of push their style of fight.
Let's move on. Talk about really the big fight of the weekend. Sergey Kovalev coming off his highly impressive decision win over Bernard Hopkins last year, returning to the ring fighting on enemy territory as he's going to be fighting former light heavyweight champion John Pascal. Fight's going to be happening in Montreal Saturday on HBO. And if you're around, unmute your fight so you can get some commentary on it. I'll go to you on this one, EJ. I look at this fight. Most people have Kovalev winning by decisive manner. For me, I look at this. I agree that Kovalev is the favorite, but I think that Pascal, because of his speed, because he's younger and fresher than Hopkins was, because he can punch, and he's a tough guy, I think he's going to give Kovalev a better fight than a lot of people think going in. Your impressions of what's going to happen in Montreal Saturday night?
I can tell you one thing, Pascal ain't intimidating from him. You know, he took his hat off like it was easy. Like, I was like, what? He took his hat off the crusher?
And Kovalev didn't like it one bit.
No, of course not. He was embarrassed, but I know he took his hat off because when they were going staring at each other, his hat was poking Pascal in the face, and Pascal's quite vain. You know, he tries to think he's a pretty guy or whatever, pretty boy, and he took off his hat. He took off his hat, like just casually took off his hat, and Cole's like, "Huh? You can't take off my hat. I'm the crusher," and he had to push him. And like Cappy Doodle was just smiling, thinking, "Okay, you know this, you know they really want it." But I'm telling you right now, man, like Pascal, if you look at his resume, he's fought real elite fighters, man. Carl Froch, a prime Chad Dawson. You know, he beat up Butte. Even when people say Butte was short, we didn't know that before Carl Froch. But you know, we were saying this guy was one of the best in the super midweight division. But I've been saying that Kovalev is a bigger guy, and he's shown he hits hard, even Hopkins. But this guy, you can right now, this is a guy who Kovalev is fighting is in his prime, like you said, Mike. And this might be Kovalev's best test. I know Hopkins was a hard test, but this might be his best test. And if he beats him in expected match, even stops Pascal, he will get all the respect. He's definitely the number, in my opinion, the number 2 in the division, but that's just my opinion. You know, Rizzo Stevenson is number 1 for me, but definitely if he knocks out someone like Pascal, that's going to be huge. It's going to be a huge statement. I've got Pascal winning. I think Pascal could beat him. You know, I'm probably in the minority over here. I think Pascal could pull it on him because every time Kovalev get hit, he bleeds or whatever. That could happen. It's going to be a real dogfight. It could be, or it could be an easy fight for Pascal. For Kovalev, depends on how if because he's got quick hands as Pascal, he can jump in, get his hands up, get his hand speed. You know, Roy Jones training him and stuff like that, but Roy Jones is not in the ring. We'll see. But for me, it should be an interesting fight. I'm going with Pascal, maybe on decision. It is in Toronto. He's not. Where is it? Is it Toronto? Montreal.
Montreal.
Yeah, Montreal. It's Montreal. So I feel. You know, he might get the favoritism of the judges if it goes to the distance. Yeah, but how many courts the Kovalev fights go to the distance? But no one's ever stopped Pascal. No one. So I'm going Pascal. But Umar, you see that Umar's back. So
your impression of the fight?
I completely agree with Errol. I mean, I was born a minority, so why not stay in that same lane? I got Pascal winning the fight. I think that Kovalev is a very good fighter. Don't get me wrong. I'm not disrespect him in any way. I think he's good, but I've also watched Kovalev struggle against Darnell Boone. I've also watched Kovalev be dropped by Caparillo, who nobody's ever heard of. I've also watched Kovalev get dropped by that other guy, that brother that I'd never heard of before he fought Kovalev. I've seen him get dropped and seen him get hurt, and I think people are underestimating Pascal, who has a very strong resume to bring into this fight. I mean, in my opinion, he beat B-Hop, got a draw. He beat Chad Dawson. And, I mean, he's fought the better competition, and I think everybody knows he's got power. And I think that if you're getting dropped by guys like Caparillo, who's to say or what's to say that Pascal can't drop you? That Pascal can't drop you maybe once or twice and get a decision, especially considering it's in Montreal. Because like Pascal says, he's the money man in that division, and nobody can argue with that. After he beat Lushan Bute, because those were the two money men in the light heavyweight division. After he beat him, he took over that throne because Adonis Stevenson, yeah, he's popular in Canada, but he's not. He doesn't compare to Bute or Pascal. Those are the guys up there, and I believe if the fight's close in Canada, come on now, it's gonna go to Pascal, and I believe that Pascal can keep it close and get a decision. I think he might knock him down, and I think he can keep it close. And I think with that new Roy Jones ambush style that Roy Jones is teaching him, I mean, he always had the ambush style, but I think the perfecting of the ambush style, I think he's going to win the fight, me personally. And I'm going to put money on this, I got Pascal by knockout in 8. But that's just my opinion. I could be completely off base on that, but I got Pascal knockout 8 rounds.
Before I go to Gail, let me ask you a follow-up question. You mentioned the Roy Jones working in the corner of Pascal. You mentioned this ambush style. Follow further on how Roy Jones has improved Pascal. Can you hear me, Ben? I guess he can.
Yeah, I can hear you. I muted myself. My bad. In my opinion, and that's a good question, my opinion is that Pascal always used to try to fight like Roy, because if you listen to Pascal speak, the reason his inspiration for boxing was Roy Jones. If you watch his little documentary or whatever you want to call it, he never wanted to box. His brother boxed, and then we went to the gym. He didn't like boxing. Then he went home with his brother, watched the Roy Jones fight, and then from that point on, he always wanted to fight. And he always used to try to imitate Roy Jones, but now he's got RJJ in his corner to teach him how to really imitate Roy Jones. And if you watch that Lushan Bute fight, it was like watching it wasn't like watching Roy Jones, because nobody could be Superman in his prime. But it was like watching a very good imitation of him, and he was looking good. The look away left hooks, the triple up the left hooks, he was doing a lot of that stuff. And I think Roy Jones is just refining what Pascal's always wanted to do. I mean, he's still, and what Pascal was smart about, he didn't get rid of his corner. He just brought Roy in there to add to his style. And I think that's helping him get it to where it needs to be. If you're going to do that Roy Jones style, Pascal has athleticism to do it, but you're going to need some guidance in that. And I think that Roy is just giving him the guidance and when to do certain things and when not to do certain things. Because as unorthodox as Roy was, there was a method to that man's madness. Okay, there was. Nobody can tell me different. There was a method to his madness. And I think he's just giving them the methods to implement that style, in my opinion. But I'm sure people will disagree with me, but that's just my opinion, and I would love to hear other people's opinions.
I'll go to you on this one, Gail, and you can follow up, Shawn. And Gail, stay at the end of this show. I got a couple of questions to ask you. Your thoughts on the fight, and any follow-up to what Ben says. I agree with him to a point, but I will say my problem with the analysis is I have issues with Pascal's conditioning. He fights in spurts, in my opinion. Big muscular guys like Pascal, they always have trouble fighting a full 12 rounds in a full 3 minutes of a round. And there are spots where he doesn't fight where I think that the consistency of a Kovalev will come into play, particularly if he displays the patience that he showed against Hopkins. And I think with his power, that may take advantage. He may take advantage of those periods of inactivity by Pascal. Now, to Ben's point, Pascal can punch too. Have we ever seen Kovalev hit solidly by a guy of this puncher's or by Pascal's ability to punch? But, you know, your impressions on what's going down Saturday night.
I think you're right on target. Let's remember that the big question that needed to be answered and was answered by Kovalev against Hopkins was, how would he do if he got into the later rounds with an opponent? And we found out that not only is he in superb condition, he demonstrated that he is more than just a lights-out, knockout puncher. He was smart, he was patient, he had good boxing skills, and he handled the craftiness of a Bernard Hopkins, although it really wasn't on full display as it has been. In contrast, you've got somebody like Pascal who, for all he wants to think that he's Roy Jones, you know what? He's not that complicated a guy. And I'm not sure that he won't revert to type when the things get tough or get into the later rounds. And I agree with you about conditioning. So now we know that there is no question about Kovalev's conditioning, and I think that he also recognizes that he is in Pascal's home country. He's going to be in front of Pascal's home fans and native judges for the most part, and he is not going to want to let it go to the cards, not at least without Pascal's butt hitting the canvas, even if he gets up once or twice. And so I think that we will see a lot of the same kind of discipline that we saw Kovalev display against Hopkins, but with an eye to thinking, if I can help it, I do not want to let this go to the judges. And I think you're absolutely right. If he sees an opening with Pascal reverting to type, skating at all, losing focus, he's going to pounce. And knocking off his hat yesterday didn't help.
I'll go to you on this one, Shawn, and then I'll give EJ and Ben an opportunity to respond to what's been said.
You know, Kovalev's in his prime right now. I mean, he showed that he's in great shape. He can go 12 rounds hard. He's a good boxer, conventional, has a good jab, long reach, and he has huge power. Pascal, he fights in spots like you mentioned. You know, he takes time off. He waits so he can jump in and catch guys off guard. That's how he fights. If Kovalev knows that, which I'm sure he does, then all he has to do is keep hitting with that jab and restarting him and just never let him get off. And then you know he's jumping in. So what's he going to jump into? Huge power. You know, nothing against Pascal. I like Pascal, and I thought he put on a great fight with Froch. But lately, he's been inactive. He hasn't fought a lot. And I don't think he has what it takes to beat Pascal. I mean, at this division, I don't think there's anybody that's going to beat Pascal.
EJ, Ben Umar, any response to what's been said so far?
Man, it should be a good fight, man. You see, it's split right there. What you guys said is true. His stamina is I agree with that. Everything you said, I agree with. I just feel like, you know, it should be a good fight, man. I'm sticking to my guns, and let's see what happens.
Ben Umar, any comments?
Yeah, I mean, like Errol said, it's split down the middle. That's fair. I mean, we got different opinions on it, and that's good. So somebody be wrong, somebody right. But one comment I will make is I know Shawn lives in Asia now, but he won't be able to go back to Montreal or back to Canada picking against Pascal, the hometown boy. No, that much.
What do you mean? Beach picked against Kell Brook.
Yeah, I know Beats did it. They're killing Beats till this day for that. So you got to beware against picking against your hometown guys, man.
I picked against Lemieux too his last fight, so I mean, you know, there's a trend.
You guys are funny. It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I think on that note, we're going to close things out. I'll go back to you, Ben Umar. For those who want to talk about boxing or anything else, let the folks know where they can find you.
You could find me on Ben Umar Twitter, and you could find me on Boxing Beats and Rhymes videos, Errol Jarrett's videos. That's where I'll be at, man, and we'll be talking boxing as usual.
Gail Falk, Authority Community Digital News. If they want to talk boxing or anything else with you, let them know where they can find you.
If there's a fight going on, you're going to find me on Twitter yakking it up with the community at PR Pro San Diego, PR Pro San Diego. My columns appear on Community's Digital News, online news site out of Washington, D.C., and that's com with 2 M's, diginews.com.
And as an aside, Gail will be part of an all-women's show that I'm planning to have here on the Pound for Pound Box Report, tentatively scheduled for April 9th. Going to have an all-women's show, all ladies talking all things boxing. Gail, KBC Live, and a few other ladies going to be here talking. I'm going to step aside, let them have the mic, let them have the show, and do what they do, talk boxing and whatnot. So look for that. Right now, the plan is to have it on April 9th. Errol, EJ Boxing Live. If folks want to talk boxing or anything else, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
EJ Boxing Live on YouTube. I got like 4 different channels. You can find me around. You know, check out my flyweight fights. Debating with Boxing Beats and Rhymes, Ben Umar, Chris Caban. Yeah, man, you can catch me in that on the Hangouts on T Street Hangout. over here on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the new home on YouTube, one of the best boxing podcasts on YouTube. So that's what
appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it.
No doubt.
Shawn Newton, live from Taiwan. If folks want to talk boxing, you everywhere talking boxing. Let the folks know where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm all over the YTBC, so you can see me on YouTube. I'm on everybody's channels. I'll be commenting everywhere, and I'm here every Friday as well. So.
Okay, if folks want to talk boxing or anything else, they know where it is. Brother JR76 on Twitter, at P4P Boxing Report on Twitter. If you want to find out everything about the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the main place you want to go is the blog page, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com, and repeat that, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com, where you find all the articles written by yours truly and KBC Live, as well as a special article coming up soon by Gail Falkenthal. If you check out the page, you will find links to where to find us all over social media, all over the interwebs, Facebook, Google+, YouTube, Tumblr, Pinterest. We got a Pinterest board, the RSS feed, the link to find us on Stitcher Radio, Podomatic, as well as a link to donate your account. We will be back in a couple of weeks to do maybe a recap of these fights that's happening in Montreal, but also we will be back in a couple of weeks to talk about upcoming fights, including Johnny Gonzalez, fighting Gary Russell Jr. as Gonzalez defends his featherweight belt. Ben Umar, his boy, Juan Francisco Estrada, he's going to be fighting on that same day. This is all happening on March 28th. Juan Francisco Estrada is going to be defending his 2 flyweight belts. Kell Brook is going to be making his first defense of his welterweight belt against Jojo Dan. And also any kind of other boxing happening that day. I believe Donnie Nietzsche's, he's going to be defending his junior flyweight belt as well. So for Gail Falkenthal, for the brother Ben Umar, for EJ Boxing Live, for Shawn Newton, I am Michael, and this has been another episode of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. You guys have a good evening. Good night.
Thank you. Next time.
Peace.